All right, let's get into this. We're talking about a fight that, on the surface, seems like it's about nothing at all. But according to our source material, this isn't just some philosophical game. It's a conflict with deeply personal, even global consequences. And as we're about to see, the stakes are unbelievably high. And boom, right away, this whole big idea gets grounded in something we can all understand: frustration. I mean, can you imagine trying to explain something you believe is a fundamental truth about reality itself, only to have the people closest to you just brush it off? That's the emotional heart of this entire thing. So let's get right to it. Section 1: A fight over nothing. The source hits us with a pretty wild question. What if the most basic bedrock assumption we have about our universe is just flat out wrong? Yeah, this isn't some ivory tower academic debate. The source is talking about a real personal argument with family, with loved ones, who think that talking about nothingness is, a total waste of time. But for the author, it's the exact opposite. It's the key to understanding why everything seems to go wrong, from our personal lives all the way up to our global systems. Okay, so what is this big error we're supposedly making? That brings us to section 2, the void first assumption. Think of this as our default operating system for reality. It's the common sense way most of us just assume the world works without even thinking about it. And this lays it out perfectly. On the left, you've got the void model. That's our default setting. It's the idea that things can just pop into existence from nothing, that zero is a valid starting point. But on the right, you have what the source calls the all is one model. This says nope, things only come from the one reality that already exists. The void, nothingness, it's a made-up concept, a fiction. The real starting point isn't zero, it's one. And here's the crucial part. The source isn't saying, hey, here's another fun philosophy to consider. No, they're saying the void first model is a bug, a fundamental glitch in our thinking that we have mistakenly projected onto the universe itself. It's not how reality is, it's just a bad piece of code we keep running. So if that's the error, what's the correction? Section 3, a reality of one. This is the alternative model, and the source doesn't present it as a theory, but as a couple of straightforward statements of fact. So let's break this down. The first principle is that something has always existed. Existence is eternal. The second is that reality is one single universal system. There's no outside to it. And that means things like us, planets, stars, they aren't created from nothing. They're just temporary configurations, like shapes made of Lego, all from the same single eternal set of bricks. Now, this is where things get really wild. The source claims this isn't just a neat idea. It's an attempt to turn a philosophical argument into a mathematical certainty. Welcome to Section 4, an unnegotiable formal proof. So, before we go any further, what in the world is a formal proof? It's not like a normal argument. It's a way of proving something where every single tiny step in your logic is checked by a computer. The whole point is to take human opinion, bias, and error completely out of the equation. What you're left with is a conclusion that's as solid and verifiable as it gets. So how did they do it? Well, they used a system called Lean 4. First, you state your claim in the super strict language of logic. Then, you define the rules of your universe. In this case, a reality where one is the only starting point. There's no zero allowed. Then, you let the computer go to work, checking every single line. If it gets to the end without finding a single flaw, you get a closed proof, a conclusion that, inside that system, is mathematically rock solid. And what was the first big result that popped out? This theorem. Void underscore is not reality. According to this formalization, the idea that nothingness can be a fundamental reality isn't just an opinion anymore. Within this logical system, it's a proven impossibility. And here's where it connects back to our world. The next theorem is this: corruption traces to mishandling. What this means is that the proof formally links our problems, corruption, decay, you name it, not to some evil force from the outside, but to bad choices and mismanagement inside the one system of reality. So, okay, a proof about the number 0. Why should any of us actually care? Well, Section 5 is all about that, the consequence of 0. The source argues this abstract little error has a massive, tangible, and devastating real-world cost. This quote from the source just hits you, right? The feeling of horror it describes isn't being presented as some dramatic overreaction. It's being framed as the only logical response when you realize just how high the stakes are, and you believe the argument is completely mathematically sound. So what are these real-world costs? The source calls them pathologies. When we believe in nothing, we start treating information like something we humans just invent, instead of something we discover. That leads to a corrupt use of power, which in turn builds unsustainable and inhumane systems. We start to treat other beings and even whole worlds as if they're disposable, as if they came from nothing and can be sent right back to it. Which brings us to the final part of this whole story, Section 6, the deployment choice. The source's position is this: the argument is over, the proof is done. The only variable left in the entire equation is us. The message here is incredibly direct. This isn't a call for more debate. The claim is that a fix for a fundamental error in our thinking is now on the table. The challenge isn't proving the idea anymore. It's about actually implementing it, or, as the source puts it, deployment. And that leaves us with this final massive question to chew on. If you actually accept this, that our basic model of reality is flawed and a corrected version is ready to go, what would it actually mean to deploy a new one? How would that change the way we live, the societies we build, and the way we treat each other and our planet? That's the challenge, and the thought this explainer leaves us with.